Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for waiting. That is the beauty of being live. You never know what will happen, but we are very grateful for you all joining us tonight for our College Park Scholars info session. I want to thank you all for being here, and I also want to thank folks if you filled out that poll. I'm actually going to go ahead and end the poll now, and hopefully, if you took the poll, you got to see a little bit about the folks who are joining us tonight. And it is just great to have you all hear from all over, right? Including the great state of New Jersey. We love that. Um, yeah, and I'm actually just taking a look right now, just to kind of get a pulse check of who's with us, and I am seeing that uh, there's sort of this mixed feeling of people are excited, but maybe they're also feeling a little bit anxious, right? And I want to affirm that sort of combination of different feelings right now. It's an exciting time, and maybe it's a little bit daunting. And our hope is that tonight we can share some good information with you that will hopefully mitigate some of those negative feelings and provide some clarity. So thank you all for participating in that. I'm also going to go ahead and disable the Q&A feature, as I said before. Um, and what I'm going to invite folks to do is to spend the next probably 35 to 40 minutes just kind of listening. I see that there are tons and tons of questions in here. And as I just take a look through, I think that a lot of these are going to be answered throughout the course of what we share tonight. Lots of housing questions, and that does not surprise me in the least. And we will continue to get those. Um, and sorry, I'm just kind of looking through it to see what you all are thinking. Yeah, some questions about scholarships, some questions about internship opportunities, the question about what is the difference between scholars and honors. I'm seeing so much here that I know we're going to get to, and so this is actually really affirming. So thank you all for submitting those. That's very helpful. And I hope that we can get to a lot of those questions. And like I said, there will be an opportunity at the end to ask more. We'll also share some opportunities for ways that you can ask a lot of these questions beyond tonight's session, too. A lot of this will just be sort of us sharing the information with you, and there's opportunity for back and forth and conversation, certainly after tonight. Um, Great. So I guess before I go any further, right, I should probably introduce myself. My name is Ben Belfrin. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the Assistant Director for Admissions, Recruitment, and Transition with College Park Scholars. I want to say to all of our admitted students here on the Zoom call, congratulations. It is no small feat to be admitted to the University of Maryland and to be invited to College Park Scholars. So certainly something to be proud of, certainly something that I hope you can celebrate. As I said, our goal tonight is really just to answer some of those questions that you might have. And the biggest one is just understanding what is College Park Scholars, right? And so I saw from the poll that some of you might know some folks in College Park Scholars, but a lot of you don't. And so you may have very little familiarity with our program, and we hope that you leave the call understanding a lot more. So that's kind of our game plan. You will hear from some of our staff. You will also hear from a few of our students as well, which I think will be really valuable. So yeah, that's kind of our plan for the next 45 minutes or so. I do want to make a couple quick logistical notes. This call is being recorded. And so if you want to revisit it, or if you have folks who aren't here that want to see the recording, that will be available on our YouTube page. And we will put that link to the YouTube video on our website, and we'll also send it out via email. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to mention, if it's helpful, on your Zoom toolbar, there also is a button for closed captioning if that's a feature that you want to utilize. Okay. So we did our intros, we kicked things off. You've met me, and now it's my pleasure to introduce the executive director for College Park Scholars, Dr. Mary Lee Lindeman, who's going to share some remarks.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome to our future Terps and our future scholars. I am really delighted to have the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you this evening and hopefully as Ben said, to answer some of the many questions that I'm sure you have about this mysterious entity known as College Park Scholars. The first thing I want to do, though, is echo Ben's congratulations to you on being admitted to the University of Maryland and invited into College Park Scholars. Our buddies down in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions have let us know that we received a historically high number of applications this year, and we have a very, very talented pool of admitted students. So you really are to be commended on your accomplishment in being invited, and we're really excited to work with you as you make your way through the college decision process. We understand that it's exciting and also a little bit fraught. It feels very high stakes for students and their families. But we are here. We've got a wonderful team of people, including our students, who I always say they are our best advocates and explainers when it comes to helping prospective students understand what Scholars is and how it can enhance your undergraduate experience. So I look forward to you having the opportunity to hear from some of them tonight. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I briefly want to begin, and other speakers will sort of fill in more detail as the next few minutes progress. I want to start trying to give you some answers to three questions that I think you probably have right now. First, and Ben has already touched on this, what is College Park Scholars? Secondly, and I think this is a really important question, why were you invited into it? Thirdly, all important question, what will you get out of it if you accept our invitation and join us here in Scholars in the fall? So first, let me give you a short sort of dictionary definition of what College Park Scholars is. It is a group of living learning programs for academically talented first and second year students selected as part of the university's admissions process. I want to give you a second, longer, somewhat more flowery definition of what Scholars is. I'm an English teacher, so I'm fond of metaphors and adjectives. So I'm going to hit you with a barrage of adjectives that I think capture some of what Scholars is all about. I think of it as a rare, vibrant, wonderful, challenging, nurturing, diverse, and engaging place. I think one thing that's important to understand about Scholars is that it was designed back in the early 1990s when it was launched to engage and educate the whole person, right? Both head and heart. So we're here to support the development of students' abilities in scholarship, of course, we are an academic program, but also in citizenship, in learning, also in leadership, in their academic achievement, but also in living well with others. And that's not true of every single living learning program on our campus. I think they have learned a lot from us over the years, but Scholars, I think, is really known for that holistic approach to working with students. So, why were you invited? Well, we work closely with our partners in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions to identify students that we think will enjoy and benefit from the kinds of opportunities that and environment that Scholars provides. So we look for students with strength in basically three areas. First, very importantly, we look for evidence of academic success and academic potential. And as we've already noted, you are a strong and accomplished group of students, and we are really excited to have you in our classes and our community. Secondly, and this is really just as important, we look for students who have a very broad range of interests. We want students who are intellectually curious about all kinds of things, not just one thing, but sort of everything. And that's partly because all 13 of our different programs under the Scholars umbrella are interdisciplinary and they're not necessarily tied to specific majors, right? All of our programs look at questions from a variety of perspectives, disciplines, fields, and subfields. And they do that in order to solve complex problems. So one way to think as you begin to explore our programs and consider which of the individual programs might be a good fit for you. We always encourage students to sort of think outside the box of the major, right? Because we think that there's a lot of exciting learning to be done by looking across disciplinary boundaries and lines. A third thing that we look for when we're looking for potential students for scholars is students who show an investment in being a part of and helping to build a diverse and caring community. And by diversity, we're talking about diversity in all of its forms, diversity in terms of ideas, in terms of identities and people, and in terms of background. And when we talk about community, as I said before, we're really talking about a very lively and vibrant community where students are active participants in building a supportive and caring community. So those are the kinds of students that we like because we want students to be happy with the kind of environment that we're providing. So those are the things that we look for when we're building a class along with our partners in undergraduate admissions. Okay, let's move on to the third and probably to you the most interesting question. What will you get out of College Park Scholars? And I think there are lots of things that you can get out of the program. One, and I think this is super important, you'll get a soft place to land on a large campus, right? Our scholars program faculty and staffs and the wonderful folks on my central staff are a bunch of people who are eager to help you navigate the size and complexity of the campus. I love the big, lively public university, right? But I understand that it can also be a daunting, sort of intimidating place if you're coming here from, a small town, a small high school. In scholars, though, you're going to get people who, from the first day you're here, are invested in you, in supporting you. You'll be able to build close relationships with your peers, with the faculty and staff of your programs who are very caring and talented, creative people who are very invested in your success. I always tell people you're not just going to be a number in College Park Scholars. You are going to be known and seen, affirmed, and cared for. Scholars is really good at offering students support and mentorship, at helping connect them with the many kinds of opportunities that are available to you on a large university campus, including things like internships. These things can be hard to connect with in your first couple of years on campus, right? But scholars can sort of give you a leg up on connecting with those kinds of opportunities. Also, and this sort of pulls together some of what I've been saying, Scholars offers you what I think of as a sustained orientation to the university and to what it means to learn as a college student. Yes, you are all accomplished students. You've done marvelously well in high school, but it's different to learn in college, to be a student in college. So it's good to have a little bit of support in making that transition from one kind of learning environment to another. And Scholars is very good at offering that. And another thing that we provide students is an intentional and coherent path through the first 2 years of your undergraduate education. You're not just going to be checking off boxes in the general education program, right? Scholars can help you fit all of the pieces of the varied courses that you take in the Gen Ed program. You'll be able to fit them together in a more coherent and intentional way. And I think that's a very valuable thing to do as you make your way through those first couple of years. I really hope that over the next few weeks, as you explore more deeply and ask more questions, you'll come to agree that Scholars is an experience and a community that you would like to join. I'd like to end by sharing my all-time favorite comment from a scholar's student evaluation that captures what I love most about our program and community. And this is a comment that a student made at the end of the spring semester of 2020, which was the semester that was so profoundly disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of our students commented simply, eloquently, and I quote, "I always know that Scholars has my back." That really is the long and the short of it. We are present, available, proud, and happy to support our students in any way that we can. So we look forward to working with each and every one of you as you make your way along this journey of your college decision. We hope that you'll choose Maryland and Scholars, and we hope to see you here in the Cambridge community in the fall. Please do not hesitate to reach out with questions as you consider your options. And thank you so very much for being with us tonight. And with that, Ben, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Lindeman. Thank you for that great overview, and hopefully that's starting to answer some of your questions. I'm going to go ahead and share some more information now. Probably some more of the nuts and bolts that you all might be curious about. So just to kind of give you an overview of our living learning program. And so, what is College Park Scholars? That's a big question. It is a 2-year living learning experience specifically for first and second year students at the University of Maryland. A few things that I want to highlight about College Park Scholars, and Dr. Lindeman touched on a fair amount of this, but just to reiterate, we emphasize interdisciplinary learning, and so it's a great opportunity to enhance what you're doing in your academic major and really be exposed to ideas and perspectives from a variety of different academic disciplines. We have lots of opportunities for hands-on learning, which include internships, service learning, research, study abroad, and plenty of local excursions around College Park in the DC area. So we think that's a great opportunity as well. And the other thing I want to highlight is community building and how we are able to create community for the folks in College Park Scholars. I use the term living learning program, and I think baked into that term, you can see the ways that we engage in students are through the living, right? So living together on campus, and I'll talk more about that. And then the learning as well, right? So you are seeing your peers in College Park Scholars, in 1 or 2 classes each semester. And then you are going back to the residence hall, you're seeing them there, you're engaging with them at a variety of different co-curricular programs as well. So that exposure, that opportunity to bond really helps to create that community. And we do that right from the very beginning. So if you choose to come to the University of Maryland and you join Scholars, sort of the second you get to campus, we will have some great programs like Service Day and Scholars Under the Lights, where you'll be able to meet your peers right off the bat and form those really critical connections that will be, I think, really valuable to you as a first year student on campus. Um, a few notes about the structure of our program. So College Park Scholars does consist of 13 different programs, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Each of those 13 programs is comprised of anywhere from 70 to 90 new students in each cohort. And so all of you as invited College Park Scholar students will have the opportunity to be a part of one of those 13 programs. As far as the living piece that I mentioned and students living together, our space on campus is the Cambridge Community. That is a collection of 5 residence halls on North Campus, and they are actually clustered around a building called the Cambridge Community Center, which is our academic building where a number of our classes are held. So when I talk about community, I'm also talking about sort of that physical community space that we get to call home, which I think is great for students. And the last thing I'll mention about that space that we have, your faculty for your programs actually have their program offices right in the residence halls where you would be living. And what that means is that you have really easy access to your faculty, and they are sort of able to be a great resource for you, and you really don't even have to go far at all to get in touch with them. And so, in that way, we think we are able to give you a lot of those benefits of a smaller college, a more tight-knit community, but sort of within the context of the large research university that is the University of Maryland. Okay, so these are the 13 programs that I mentioned. Um, each of these programs has its own interdisciplinary theme, and you can see just from taking a glance at these that there are a wide variety of academic fields and interests represented here. I want to say a few things about this, right? So all of these programs have their own distinct curriculum, and what you learn in these programs, what you gain from them is meant to be sort of complementary to your academic major. It is not meant to be synonymous with an academic major. Okay. And that's a point that we'll probably repeat a few times tonight. So, for example, you're not going to see any programs on this list called computer science or engineering, right? And I'm sure many of you on the call, that is your intended major, and that's great. Um, if you are one of those majors, computer science or engineering, what that means is there's actually many of these programs that could be really useful and interesting to you, right? Whether the content of the program is relevant to your field in some way, or the skills that you're able to gain are transferable to your intended career, or maybe it's just a topic or an area of study that you are just genuinely interested in, and this is an opportunity for you to explore that sort of outside of your major. All of those are completely valid. And I think it's great for students to be sort of open to any sort of program that might be a little bit different than what you would expect based on your academic major. And we'll have some students who really highlight that very well in a few minutes. The last thing I'll say about the programs is that with that coursework that goes along with each program, many of those actually satisfy our university's general education requirements. And so I do want to reiterate that the coursework that you would complete for College Park Scholars shouldn't be viewed as sort of an extra burden, but you're actually checking off academic requirements that you would have had to fulfill regardless. Okay. And so if your question is how do I end up in one of those 13 programs, the answer is right here. It's your College Park Scholars program preference form. Hopefully you've logged onto your TERPS application portal, and if you go to your student checklist, you will see sort of right here where our preference form is located. And so if you haven't been there yet, feel free to pull that up, but that is how you will submit your preferences for your College Park Scholars program. And I'm gonna say a little bit more about that because this is actually one of our big action pieces that we want you to leave with tonight. So when you submit that program preference form, you will be asked to indicate your top three preferred programs within College Park Scholars, and then you'll write a brief statement sort of elaborating on why you're interested in those programs. Uh, a few things that I want to say about that. I want to encourage you to be thoughtful about this, right? And so each of our 13 programs has its own page on our website. So I would really recommend that you take the time to go through those different programs, their web pages, and there's some great overviews there to give you a sense of what each program is all about. I'm also excited to share that we just launched this sort of fun tool. It is I would say, a BuzzFeed style quiz that is on our website that asks you some questions, and then it will actually recommend a handful of programs that you might be interested in. So that's sort of a fun tool we just released if you want some additional guidance with your considering all your different options. So regardless of what you do, definitely take your time with it. Look at our 13 programs, and then indicate the three that are most of interest to you. And like I said, it doesn't need to be directly aligned with your academic major, right? And the other thing that I'll say in addition to that, please be open to all three that you put on that form, right? And so I would imagine that there could be a student, for example, a business major who is inclined to put business, society, and entrepreneurship as their top preferred program. That's great. Totally support that. And also, I would hope that that student can also be open to their second and third preference as well, because there are so many programs within College Park Scholars that would benefit a business major or any number of majors, right? So just kind of being open to that possibility, I think, goes a long way. Based on what you submit, we will place you into one of the three programs from your form, and you will be notified of that placement by the end of February. And so you will have that information fairly soon after you submit. The last thing I want to say about the program preference form, and this is very important. Submitting the program preference form does not in any way commit you to the University of Maryland. Okay. I'm sure that all the folks on the call, all the students who are here, you are probably not that close to deciding where you want to go to college in the fall, right? You're probably still early on in that process, and that is completely understandable. We don't expect you to be committed to the University of Maryland yet. If you are, that's awesome, but if you're not, that's totally valid. This is totally separate from committing to the university. And in fact, if you go back to that checklist on your application portal, accepting the offer of admission is a different item. It's the first item. So when you do this, when you submit our program preference form, all you're doing is getting placed into one of our 13 programs, and you're going to have a spot reserved for you if you decide to attend the University of Maryland this fall. So it's just reserving your spot, no financial implication, no downside to submitting that form. So we encourage you to definitely go ahead and do that. Okay. So I know that's a lot of information at the onset here, and we will circle back at the end to some of the questions that you all had and some of the other logistical pieces. But I do want to go ahead now and transition to what I think is the most fun part of tonight, and that's the opportunity to hear from a few of our awesome students. And they will be able to share so much about the student experience, and highlight some really great insights, as students who are in College Park Scholars currently. So I'm going to go ahead and unshare my screen so that we can see them. Welcome to the three of you. Thank you all so much for being here. I guess we can start off by just having the three of you introduce yourselves.
Hey, great. Hey guys, I'm Anjika Singh and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior computer science and biological sciences dual degree, and I was part of the Global Public Health Scholars Program.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Ramirez. I use she, her pronouns. I am a sophomore majoring in human development, and I am a part of the CESG Scholars Program, also known as Civic Engagement for Social Good.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I am a freshman. This is my second semester here. I'm a finance major and I'm in the Justice and Legal Thought Scholars Program.
All right, thanks all. Appreciate it. And so for our attendees, I actually have a list of questions that I'm going to go ahead and ask our student panelists. Uh, as we get to the end of my questions, I will reopen the Q&A, and that will be your opportunity if you have questions for them, about the student perspective and things of that nature. Um, but yes, so let's go ahead and kick things off. I'm curious if you all can think back to when you were in the position of so many of the folks on the call tonight. Why did you choose to attend the University of Maryland and join College Park Scholars?
So for me personally, I chose to attend UMD mainly due to the fact that it is an R1 school and I'm heavily interested in research. And I decided to join the Scholars Program mainly because it was a living learning program, and I thought it would be a great way to introduce me to new people who I can build stronger relationships with, especially since we would be living together and learning together for the net like for the span of 2 years.
Yeah, building off of that, I chose to come to Maryland because it's really close to home for me. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm sure some of you in this call are probably there too. And I chose to join Scholars honestly because of the really supportive faculty and student ambassadors that I got to speak to, similar to like you all are today, and how supportive they were and helpful in helping me make this decision.
I'm coming from out of state, so for Maryland, for me, just seemed like such an amazing community, and I really like the big school feel. But like we were saying earlier, being able to have scholars and the ability to have that smaller community within such a big school is invaluable, especially coming from out of state and not knowing a lot of people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And appreciate you all sharing, and Sophia for highlighting the out-of-state experience. We saw we have a bunch of out-of-state folks joining us tonight, so that's really affirming to hear that. Okay, so we shared a lot about what we think are the benefits of scholars as the staff. I'm sure folks want to hear from you as the students. What do you think are the unique benefits of participating in College Park Scholars?
I think some of the unique benefits would be the activities that we got to do as a part of the program, as well as practicum. So for my program specifically, we got to go on field trips to DC and Baltimore for learning and for service day, as Ben mentioned earlier on. And then for my practicum, I was able to gain research experience, which was super helpful for my career development, since, as I mentioned before, that is something I want to go into. And I got the opportunity to do that through scholars.
Yeah, so as Ben and Dr. Lindemann mentioned before, I think Scholars offers a lot of unique experiences specifically with the network that you get to build around Scholars because it's really difficult and can be hard to build that network on your own. And so Scholars kind of provides that framework to do that for you. So coming in, you already have access to so many different opportunities. Um, Internships, research opportunities, and practicum, which you'll be able to do during your sophomore year, and which is something I'm doing right now.
I agree. As a freshman, I haven't done my practicum experience, but what I can say so far is that it has really been awesome to do the community service at Service Day and just be linked to so many local organizations and have activities outside of the campus, really, because I don't know, again, as an out-of-state person, how I would have found these amazing organizations to have worked with.
Thank you all for sharing those. Um, so my next question is sort of if you can go back in time again, put yourself in the shoes of the folks who are here tonight. Um, at one point, you all filled out that program preference form. How would you recommend that invited students approach that form as they're thinking about what programs they could be interested in? And is there anything that maybe you would have done differently, or what would you recommend?
So I would recommend invited students to read through each of the descriptions and see which ones match their interests the best. It doesn't have to be purely based on your major. You can choose something that simply just interests you. And I think Ben mentioned that there's now like a BuzzFeed style quiz that is available to students, which I didn't have. So I would definitely recommend doing that quiz and seeing which program would be the best for you.
Yes, I definitely want to agree with that. Use that BuzzFeed quiz because I really wish I had that. But this is a great question because I remember putting global public health actually as my very first preference, and CESG was my last preference. And so I clearly ended up in CESG, which was not what I put, but it's important to remember that you should keep an open mind. Each program has something really special to offer, and CESG has just become one of my favorite things to be a part of here at UMD. And I'm just so happy and grateful to have ended up where I am today.
Similar to Natalie, my first choice as a finance major was the business society and entrepreneurship, but I've always like wanted to be a lawyer and kind of thought about that as well. And so I think even though Justin Legal Thought wasn't my first choice, it is one of the best things that ever happened to me was getting in that program and the people I've met, and it's really, really helped me know that I do want to be a lawyer in the future, even though that's not my major.
All right, thank you all for sharing those insights. I think that's going to be really useful for folks. Um, So my next question, sort of related related to what some of you just shared. I'm curious, how does your scholars program complement or enhance your academic major?
I would say the scholars program helped me enhance my major because it was a different perspective of what I wanted to do in the future. I was part of global public health, and obviously there's like bio and public health coincide a little bit, but there's so many different things that I learned from public health that I don't learn in my bio classes. And I thought it was just a great new perspective since I'm interested in medical sciences and research. And it also gave me a viewpoint of how people identify and address public health and public health problems.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I am a human development major under the College of Education. And so there's a lot of ways that my program specifically complements that. So, for example, during my freshman year, we had the opportunity to do a long-term service project, and I chose to do it with a nonprofit service organization called SHP, abbreviated for Sleeping in Heavenly Peace. And essentially, their goal was is to assemble and deliver beds to children in need in the local areas near University of Maryland. And that goal really just spoke to me as a human development major who's really passionate about child development and their healthy growth and development. Yeah.
Kind of like I was saying earlier, even though I'm a finance major, I'm not on a pre-law track or anything politics. It's really awesome to be able to go to class and or to go to my scholars class and really have that specialized curriculum for what I want to do while having like a different major, being in a different college. But really, kind of what Dr. Lindemann was touching on earlier is that almost all of the skills and like the different scholars programs are really transferable. Like if you go to all the scholars programs, you will have such a wide variety of majors, and that's because the things we learn, I wouldn't say are specific to any one major.
That's awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. And I just love to hear the examples of ways that people are able to make those connections between their major and what they're doing in scholars. So that's always great to hear. Um, so for our attendees, I have one more question, but I'm going to actually go ahead at this point and reopen or re-enable the Q&A feature. And I would invite you to go ahead if you have questions specifically for our students here about their experiences, go ahead and drop those questions in there, and we might be able to get to a couple of them. So you can go ahead and do that while I ask my last question. But give me 1 second. I will go ahead and re-enable that. All right, so that should be up and running again. Okay, so my final question, and one that I think is a good one to sort of leave off on my end. What is one piece of advice that each of you would share with the prospective students who are with us tonight?
Something I would share with prospective students is to try to talk to the people and professors in your program. These are going to be the people that you work with and interact with for 2 years. So I think it would be a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to make friendships and connections, and I would say take advantage of that.
Yeah, so my piece of advice is going to be very general. Keep an open mind and be excited. The first year of college is just so much, so overwhelming sometimes, and it comes with so many exciting things and experiences to take in and absorb. So it's important to know that wherever you end up is going to be where you belong. Everything happens for a reason, and I'm a very strong believer in that. So keep that in mind when you're accepting your application. Yeah.
My advice for anyone that joins us at Scholars is definitely to utilize the living learning community aspect. I mean, it's just so cool to be in class with all the same people that are in your hall. And when we have a test, we can all study together. And when we have a project, we can all work together. And it's just a really cool experience that is pretty awesome to have.
All right, that is, I mean, that is just such great advice, and I'm so grateful to the three of you for sharing that. I do want to turn to some of the questions that I'm seeing in our Q&A. Um, a few folks have asked about what the practicum is, and you all did a great job of talking about some examples. And so, just some clarity around the practicum. That's a requirement across our 13 programs in College Park Scholars. Students will complete their practicum requirement typically in the fourth and final semester in College Park Scholars. So, it's a 2-year program. You're doing it usually second semester of your second year. And that's the applied learning, right? So, when I talked about those hands-on experiences, it is working with nonprofits, like Natalie mentioned, it's working on research. It can sometimes be a study abroad. It can be an internship. So it's sort of a broad term we use for the applied learning piece. And every program is going to have slightly different requirements for what can fulfill that requirement. And you can find great examples of that on our website as well. But that's a great question because that is a hallmark of our program because a lot of students are not getting those internships or those hands-on experiences until later on in their college career, maybe junior or senior year. All of our students have it by the time they're done with their sophomore year. So we think that's really great. So certainly wanted to highlight that. A couple of questions that I'm going to toss back to our panelists that I'm seeing. Um, One of them is around sort of your social circle and kind of meeting people or getting involved on campus beyond scholars. Have you found that you're able to do that, to kind of get out there onto the rest of campus beyond just your scholars network?
Yeah, I would love to answer this question. So, as I mentioned before, I am a double major in biological sciences and computer science. And in addition to that, I do have some research experience on campus. I've done internships, and I'm a part of a pre-professional frat. And with all this stuff combined, I think I've had like a lot of time to work on my scholars commitments. And I'm back here again as an ambassador. I think it's a great program. I think there's not too much not too much of a workload where you're going to be pressurized by everything because if I can do all these things, you can definitely do it too.
Yeah, building off of that, I think it's really important to note that scholars, the courses that are offered through scholars, is not meant to be a heavy workload. It's meant to just be a small addition to your major and what you're studying. And so I honestly have a lot of friends who are also double majors, and it hasn't really affected their workload. Um, and then on the other hand of that question, I think living on North Campus in itself gives you so many opportunities to reach out and connect with other people outside of scholars because North Campus is where everything happens. You have so many different other programs, different other majors housed in so many different places. And it's kind of like a home for everyone. And so it's going to be a really cool experience when you're here.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about like seeing scholars as a social burden. I thought it was really cool to be able to meet people with similar interests that as me and but really like everyone was saying, just living in a North Campus, you're gonna like inevitably meet a lot of other freshmen in your other classes, major classes and clubs.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing some of that. I think that is a great question, and our hope is that those 2 years that you're in scholars are really foundational for making those connections, but you're not limited to that, right? And so then you also have your junior and senior year where you're able to kind of choose your own adventure beyond College Park Scholars. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. And thank you all for speaking a little bit about the workload too. We got a number of questions about that. And I think you provided some good assurance around the ability to manage the different involvements you have, being a double major, things like that, and still completing the scholars requirements. So I think that is very helpful. Anything else that three of you want to add that came up, or any last things that you want to share with the group?
Well, Ben, I noticed that we have not addressed the question of the difference between honors and scholars, which came up a lot in the Q&A. So
Yep, and that's coming up, and I
you
should have
got
said that.
that?
Actually, thank you.
Okay.
After this, I got an FAQ slide for you all, and it's got a number of the questions in the Q&A. So thank
Oh,
you for that.
sorry,
Thank you for giving
spoiled.
folks that assurance. No, you're good.
Well, and if I may, on the question of workload, I think it is important to understand that the heart of the scholars curriculum in each of our programs is the colloquium course, which is just a 1 credit course, right? And that's the only thing that you will take in Scholar is probably that you wouldn't otherwise have to take. In most programs, it's a 1 credit course in each of the first 3 semesters. And then your other Scholars courses are 3 credit courses that in most cases fulfill general education requirements. So it really doesn't add a lot of extra credits, and there are not, wasted credits, if you will. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point to make. Um, I think with that, I want to go ahead and thank our student panelists so much for sharing your perspectives and highlighting your experiences. Truly so grateful for you all. Always impressed by the narratives from our scholar students like you all. So thank you so much for sharing. Um, and with that, I am going to go ahead and, as I said, pull up an FAQ slide, right? And so give me 1 second while I do that. Okay, so we are not going to leave you all hanging, the folks who shared so many of these questions or questions related to this in the Q&A, and we had a feeling we would see these questions. I'm doing a quick time check. We did start a little bit late. I know, people have places to be, so if you're able to hang on a little bit longer, we really appreciate it. I know the Terps basketball team plays soon. I know a new episode of the Pit drops soon, so we got things to do. So I'll try to move fast, but I do want to answer your questions as best I can. And so the first question always, and we understand it, is around housing and roommates. We saw so many of those questions in the Q&A. Here's what I'm going to do. I will provide, I think, some of the basics, hopefully the foundational information that will be helpful for you all. Um, and also say that the best resource for any questions about housing on our campus is the Department of Resident Life. So absolutely feel free to contact them via phone or email. Okay, so a little bit about housing, right? I shared that our students live together in the Cambridge community. And so if you are deciding to live on campus as a UMD student, you will sort of by default be assigned to housing in our residence halls in the Cambridge community. As I mentioned, there are 5 different residence halls, and each program actually has its own designated hall within our housing, and so that's sort of where you would be put by default. A little bit more about housing. The process by which you are applying for housing is no different than any other student. So even though we have our designated housing, you should still apply for housing. There's a housing and dining agreement that is submitted through Resident Life, and that's not due until May 1st. So you got some time, but that is still something you're going to want to do if you plan to live on campus. Um, Additionally, I do want to share that if you need any sort of accommodations for your living arrangements, that would be submitted via that housing and dining agreement. And if those accommodations require you to live outside of our housing, we wholeheartedly support that. And there are other students in that position, so that is completely fine. Relatedly, if you're not going to live on campus at all, if you are planning to be a commuter student, then I also want to let you all know that that is totally valid as well. So we always have a number of students who are commuters who do not live on campus. And if you have questions about what being a scholar looks like as a commuter, certainly reach out to us and we can share more about that. Okay, so that's housing. And the other question related to this is roommates, and we get this question all the time. Here's what I'll say. You are highly encouraged to room with another student in the College Park Scholars Program. A couple things I'll mention about that, right? We are very far from the roommate sort of selection and assignment process, right? So I know it's top of mind for folks. Maybe put it on pause for a second. We got some time, right? But just to share a little bit more, what's going to happen is in June, the Department of Resident Life will open up their sort of roommate request process via this portal called Roommate Finder, and that's where you can search for potential roommates and you can request the folks that you want to room with. The default there is to live with someone in Scholars. One question we get, does it have to be someone who is in my specific scholars program? So if I'm a public leadership student, can I room with someone who is in science, technology, and society? Yes, that's totally fine. You can go across the 13 programs, and that is totally fine with us. Just know that in some cases, such as that example, different programs are housed in different halls. So you might end up being placed in a hall within scholars housing that isn't necessarily the home of your specific program. We don't have a problem with that if you don't, but it's just something to be mindful of. Um, and the last thing I'll say about roommates, because I saw this question, we always get this question, what if I don't want to live with someone in College Park Scholars? That is something that you can choose to do. You would make that request through the Department of Resident Life to request a roommate who's not in Scholars. And at that point, all bets are off as far as what housing you would get assigned to. It could be with us, it could be somewhere else on campus, but that would be sort of your decision to make. But yeah, lots of options with housing and roommates. And I could talk about this. I could have made the whole presentation about this, but honestly, I think it's better if you all, like I said, get in touch with the Department of Resident Life. And also, a lot of this is down the road. So certainly want to give you the information and invite you to kind of consider it when we get to that point. Okay. That's actually the longest of these FAQs, I promise. The rest, they get progressively shorter and simpler as far as my responses to them. I did want to get to this next question that Dr. Lindeman just shouted out a second ago. What is the difference between honors and scholars? I saw that question. And it's a good question. It makes sense. What I will say is there's actually a lot of similarities between the Honors College and College Park Scholars. All right. They are both living learning programs for academically talented students. And as living learning programs, they have that shared structure of we are taking courses together and we are living together, right? And so that much is similar. And similar to College Park Scholars, Honors is also comprised of sort of sub programs. They have 8 under their umbrella. We have 13. Some of the nuances and differences come with structure. So across their 8 programs, there's a little less uniformity. For example, all of our 13 programs are 2 years in length. Honors does not have that same uniformity. They have a program that's 4 years, for example. So there's one difference you'll note. The other difference that I'll note too is in the living arrangements. So housing for students in the Honors College is sort of spread out across campus as far as where programs are housed. In College Park Scholars, we have all of our designated housing together in the Cambridge community. And so in that sense, kind of have a shared communal home across all of our programs together in one part of campus. So those are a few distinctions between the two programs. I think what a lot of you are wondering, the underlying question is, okay, what's the difference? But also like, why was I invited to one versus the other? And Dr. Lindemann actually touched on this a lot in her piece toward the beginning, as far as the criteria we look at. The Honors College is looking at applicants based on academic measures, right? So GPA, test scores, class rank, sort of cut and dry factors like that, all related to academics. That's pretty much the only thing that they're considering, which is great. In College Park Scholars, we are certainly looking for academically talented students. Those are the same kinds of factors we're paying attention to, but also we are looking for a variety of other things in addition to sort of academic merit. And you've heard about that now. You've heard about sort of commitment to the community. So we are taking a look at your involvement outside of the classroom. Do you have leadership roles in your school and in your community? Are you doing service learning? We look at that essay question about the value of diversity that you might remember responding to. So we are taking a much more holistic approach to our review process when we are considering students that we potentially want to invite to College Park Scholars. And the last thing I'll say too is we've talked about the interdisciplinary nature of our program. We're hoping to identify students who indicate some sort of interest in multiple academic areas. So that's a little bit about what we look for. The thing to know about the distinction between honors and scholars, both are fantastic programs for some of the best and brightest students at the University of Maryland, and honestly have probably more in common than they have that are different. So, but that's a great question they wait all the time. Okay, a few more FAQs. What is the course load for a scholars program? I saw some questions about this. I do want to reiterate it is 2 years or 4 semesters of coursework. The total number of credits varies program to program, but on average, it is 1 to 2 courses that are scholar-specific courses that you're going to be taking each of those 4 semesters. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of the course load. And If you're curious about the exact courses that you would be taking, all of that information is on our website. So you go to any of our program pages, it will list out the required courses on those pages. So you can get a sense of what the academic requirements are. Um, so there's that. I saw some questions about study abroad. We get more and more of those. And if you're wondering, can I study abroad? Of course, don't let us stop you, right? I mean, that is a huge thing that people want to do as college students. If you're in College Park Scholars, you're going to have all of the universities study abroad opportunities available to you. In particular, we have so many opportunities on this campus for short-term study abroad that you could certainly do during the 2 years that you're in College Park Scholars. And in fact, sometimes, depending on your program, that study abroad could sort of fulfill a practicum requirement. So that's something you can certainly do. And if you're like, nah, I need to be in Spain for a whole semester, you got your junior and senior year to do that when you're no longer a scholar. So certainly we will not hold you back from seeing the world. Um, and the last question is around scholarships, finances, and that's a very important one. We can totally understand that. There are not scholarship opportunities specific to College Park Scholars for you all as admitted students. What I will say though is that all of you are considered for all of the scholarships offered by the university, right? So, and many of our students are offered some great scholarship opportunities. They just aren't coming from us as College Park Scholars, or they're just not coming as a result of your participation in College Park Scholars. And so just want to make that clear. Um, as far as financial aid is concerned and some of the questions you may have about that, financial aid information is still forthcoming, so you haven't missed it yet. That comes after your acceptance letter. Typically would be sent out in the next few weeks, so be on the lookout if you have questions about your financial aid package. And if you have questions just generally, you can certainly reach out to our financial aid office. But the last thing I'll mention about this is you might have noticed I said for admitted students, there's no scholarships. We actually do have scholarships for current students. So there's a few opportunities for that through College Park Scholars once you join us and are a part of the program. So those are some of the FAQs that I had. Yes, Dr. Lindman, go ahead.
Just while we're on the subject of money, because I saw some questions in the Q&A about are there additional financial costs associated with scholars? And the answer to that is no. I mean, unless, from very modest charges for participation in certain kinds of excursions or something like that. But in terms of participating in the program, no, no extra costs.
Yep. Thank you so much for highlighting that. We do get that question a lot. Yep. So truly no downside that I can see. So those are some of the frequently asked questions. I know so many of them fell into those kind of categories. Here's what I'll say to reassure you all. The conversation doesn't end tonight, and there are so many opportunities to get your questions answered. So if we didn't answer your question that you put in the Q&A, or if more arise, or maybe you have a really individual case that you want to talk through with a Scholar staff member, we have some great opportunities for you all here. And so these are our Scholars touch points. These are actually just drop-in hours via Zoom. So not like this, not a webinar where you're being talked at, but actually much more informal. You can log on at any point over the course of the hour, and I'll be there. We'll have a few students there, and it's an opportunity to actually have a conversation and get more of that one-on-one attention that you're probably not able to get tonight. So hold those questions. We're happy to answer them on one of these calls, and there are a variety of other ways to reach out to us as well, and I'll share our contact info at the end. But wanted to share this opportunity for you all because I know there probably are still lots of lingering questions. And that information will actually be emailed out to you tomorrow as well. So if you were trying to hastily write that down, it's on our website and you will get it via email. Okay, I want to close out. We're doing okay on time, not too bad. The big action item for you all, as I said, is that program preference form. So if you leave with nothing else today, hopefully you are interested enough and we've sold you enough that you feel compelled to go ahead and fill out that program preference form that is on your TERPS application portal. If you've already done it, that's great. If not, you have until February 16th. Just to reiterate one more time, right? There's no downside to submitting it. There's no financial implications. You are not committing to the University of Maryland, and it's really just saving your spot if you decide to be a Terp. And so I would really encourage folks to go ahead and do that. And if you have issues or questions with that, feel free to reach out to us. I want to highlight a few opportunities for visiting campus this spring. It is something to be thinking about now, right? Because some of the slots at these programs will be filling up. Some opportunities I want to highlight in particular. We have the admitted student open houses. There's a couple of in-person ones coming up in March and April. Those are large-scale events that are put on by our admissions office, where you'll learn a lot about campus, lots of different presentations and sessions, and we have a presence there. So we'll have a couple of sessions, and there will be an opportunity to engage with us, check out the Cambridge community, things like that. So I would really encourage, if you want to get a really holistic experience and deep dive into what UMD is all about, the open houses are a really good opportunity for that. If you're
And
unable,
also,
yep.
that's a chance to meet the people who are a part of the scholars program that you will have been placed into by that point.
Yeah, good point, right? So you will have your specific program placement, whatever of the 13 programs you've been assigned to at that point, and then you can do a deeper dive into that particular program. Great point. Um, if neither of those work for you, or if you're not able to get a spot, we also have scholars info sessions that are held on campus. You'll see there's 6 different dates throughout March and April. And that's an opportunity to uh, get a similar sort of experience from the scholars perspective. We'll have a presentation, we'll have some students there, we'll do tours, and we actually pair that with something called Next Stop Maryland, which is a very abbreviated version of the open house that is put on by our admissions office. So um, all that to say, we have this information on our website. It's going to be sent to you via email very shortly. Go ahead and if you can register for something, these spots do fill up quickly. And I'll also say too, just because we've gotten this question before, my recommendation, you probably only need to attend one or the other, right? So if you can get an open house spot, great, that you're going to get a very holistic experience. If not, then go for the info sessions. But if you attend both, there might be some redundancies, but we would love to see you at either because we know how important it is to see the campus. I think that is about what we wanted to share, and obviously there's so much information that we want to convey. The conversation doesn't stop, as I said before. If you can't log onto one of those touch point drop-in hours, you can of course email us, you can call us. We are more than happy to chat with you over the coming weeks and months. We know that this is a big decision, that there's so much information that you're being inundated with, and our goal here is really just to be as helpful as possible and for you to see the value of coming to the University of Maryland and being in College Park Scholars. So, with that, I do want to go ahead and let folks get to the rest of their evening and just end by saying thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about College Park Scholars, and congrats again on your admission and your invitation to the program. And we hope to see you all soon. Take care.